Hi there, and welcome to the Sunny Days podcast at jollyville.com. And I'm your host, Jolly. And today we've got a couple of uplifting stories, some did you know, and more. So grab a cup of sunshine and let's get started. First up today, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. John McCrae. The story goes, for 17 days and 17 nights, Mr. John McCrae, a soldier in World War I and a surgeon during the Second Battle of Ypres in Belgium, said that he and his comrades never took their clothes off or boots except occasionally. In all that time while I was awake, gunfire and rifle fire never ceased for 60 seconds, he said. Yet behind all the noise, we could see sights of the dead, the wounded, the maimed, and the terrible anxiety lest the line should give way. Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae was a soldier, a physician, and a poet, and we remember him this Memorial Day. He was also the son of a military leader who grew up believing and fighting for his country. His friend, Alex Helmer, was killed during the battle. While McCrae was performing the burial service for his friend, he noticed the beautiful red poppies that quickly grew around the graves of those who had died at Ypres. The seeds had scattered in the wind and sat dormant in the ground, only germinating when the land was disturbed, as it was by the fierce fighting in World War I. The day after his friend's burial, Mr. McCrae composed the poem, In Flanders Field. He wrote the poem in the voice of the dead soldiers. It speaks of their sacrifice and issues, the challenge for the living to press on. And here's In Flanders Field by John McCrae, written May of 1915. In Flanders Field, the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that marks our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly. Scarce was heard amid the guns below, we are the dead short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow. We loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders field. Mr. McCrae composed the poem while sitting on the back of an ambulance at the advanced dressing station outside Ypres. This location today is known as the John McCrae Memorial Site. I have always been amazed at how God uses nature to speak to our hearts, he said. Thank you, Mr. McCrae, for your service and for your poem. And thank you to all the service members and their families, both home and abroad. Be safe. And now a jolly chat called Evergreen. In the heart of rolling hills, nestled among whispering pines, lay a town called Evergreen. With a population of just 500, it was a place where everyone knew each other's names, where bonds ran deep and traditions held strong. Evergreen was also home to a high number of veterans, a fact that shaped the town's identity in profound ways. For the past 50 years, Memorial Day had been a sacred occasion in Evergreen. The town came together to honor its fallen heroes and to remember those who had given their lives in service to their country. And at the center of it all were 6 buddies who had led the town in this solemn celebration since they were young men themselves. Meet Tom, Jack, Mike, Sam, Joe, and Hank. They were legends in Evergreen. They had served together in Vietnam, and when they returned home, they vowed to never forget those they had lost. Every year, they worked tirelessly to organize the Memorial Day Parade, the solemn ceremony at the town's war memorial, and the gathering at the local VFW hall. The whole town turned out for the events, lining the streets with flags and flowers, their faces solemn but proud. The parade was a poignant display of patriotism, and all soldiers marching alongside young scouts and the high school band playing stirring anthems. At the war memorial, the six buddies would lay a wreath and salute their fallen comrades, their eyes reflecting a mix of sorrow and gratitude. And then at the VFW hall, the town would come together for a potluck supper, sharing stories and memories late into the evenings. But this year was different. As Memorial Day approached, Tom had fallen ill, and it soon became clear that he wouldn't be able to participate in the celebrations. The town was heartbroken. Tom was the heart and soul of the Memorial Day festivities, and it wouldn't be the same without him. Determined to honor their friend and continue the tradition, Jack, Mike, Sam, Joe, and Hank came up with a plan. They enlisted the help of the whole town, organizing a fundraiser drive to help cover Tom's medical expenses. The response was overwhelming, with donations pouring in from every corner of Evergreen. On Memorial Day, as the parade wound its way through the town, Tom watched from his hospital bed, tears streaming down his face. He was deeply moved by the outpouring of love and support from his friends and neighbors. At the war memorial, the five buddies laid the wreath as usual, but this time they added an extra salute, a tribute to their absent friend. And at the VFW hall, as the town gathered for the potluck supper, Tom's wife stood up to speak. She thanked everyone for their kindness and generosity, and she spoke of the true meaning of Memorial Day, of honoring those who have given their all for their country. And as she spoke, Tom listened, knowing that his friends had kept the faith, that the spirit of Memorial Day burned as brightly as ever in a town called Evergreen. And now, a sunny day's happy birthday to Miss Anna Coleman, who is 102 years old and has lived quite an extraordinary life. Oh, yes, says Miss Anna, I've always had a loving family. Miss Anna Coleman is known as the community mother of Marvin. Recently, she took center stage to celebrate her milestone birthday, surrounded by family, friends, and even city leaders. I'm so glad. I am so grateful, she said. Police Commissioner Michael Cox was also on hand to celebrate her milestone, and he had this to say about her. She is the core of the community, and I'm so happy to help celebrate her 102nd birthday. She is tremendous and has so much history, and she's so happy all the time. I'm so happy myself to be here and support her. Miss Anna's family says she's as active as a 30-year-old and still lives independently. The key to her longevity has been healthy eating and staying active. Miss Anna says being in good health and having friendly, kind people around me makes all the difference. She has deep roots in Boston that date all the way back to the Civil War. Her grandfather was Eli George Biddle, who was a member of the famed Civil War unit of Black soldiers known as 54th Massachusetts Regiment. Biddle was injured in the famous battle at Fort Wagner on July 18, 1863. After he was done serving, he came back to Boston to help start and pastor AME Zion Church on Columbus Avenue. He was a man with a great deal of pleasure in his heart, and he was a great preacher. The monument on Boston Common across from the State House was recently restored. They researched and found him to be the last survivor of the 54th Regiment, Miss Anna's great niece, Alta Young said. Miss Young is also the great-great-granddaughter of Biddle, who signed up to fight when he was only 17 years old. He's a big name in our family. My mother was raised in this house, Miss Young, and her brothers and sisters would watch him around the table, and he would be singing Glory, Glory, Hallelujah. Miss Young says Miss Anna not only cherished her grandfather's legacy, but also her 7 brothers and 3 sisters, many of whom served in the Army. When my brothers came home from the service to be home with us, I was always so worried about them. When they got back home, I'd get to relax, says Miss Anna. Well, as for Miss Anna, she plans to keep living her best years with her family right by her side. God's got me in the palm of his hand, she said. A sunny day's happy birthday shout out to you, Miss Anna Coleman. And now for some fun facts about the month of May. Did you know the birthstone for May is emerald? Emeralds are a deep type of stone called beryl and typically range from a deep sea green to a lighter color. Emeralds are symbols of fertility and rebirth. May actually has two flowers. Did you know that? The lily of the valley and the hawthorn. The hawthorn flower is a symbol of hope, while the lily of the valley represents the return of happiness and sweetness. And May also has two zodiac signs, Taurus and Gemini. People born under the sign of Taurus are said to be ambitious and smart and trustworthy. Those born under the sign of Gemini are said to be passionate, adaptable, and smart. May has some pretty interesting month-long observations too. In the UK, May is known as National Pet Month and National Smile Month. In the US, May is National Burger Month, Older Americans Month, and National Military Appreciation Month. May also has some pretty wacky days. Did you know Hawaii celebrates the Lay Day on the first day of May, which also happens to be May Day? And Utah celebrates Golden Spike Day on May 10th, after the first transcontinental railroad was completed. And did you know May 29th is celebrated as Put a Pillow in Your Fridge Day? Yeah. And some famous people that were born in May happen to include Wes Anderson, John F. Kennedy, Queen Victoria, Catherine the Great, Karl Marx, Clint Eastwood, Mark Zuckerberg, to name a few. And now a jolly chat poem of sorts, if you will, to all the high school graduates out there. And we'll call it To Sir and Ma'am, the Teachers. As the hush of robes and tassels sway, you gather on a momentous day. High school days now fade behind, new horizons beckon unconfirmed. Through halls you've walked with dreams so bright, guided by wisdom and knowledge's light. To sir and man with love you owe a debt, for lessons taught you'll never forget. In cap and gown you stand tall, ready to heed the future's call. You've laughed, you've cried, you've grown so much. Now spread your rings with hearts to touch. To sir and man with love you say with pride, your words of wisdom as our guide. You've shaped our mind, you've touched our hearts. Now it's time for us to depart. As we step forth into the unknown, with seeds of knowledge we have sown. In every triumph, in every fall, we'll remember you, dear teachers, through it all. So here's to the future, bright and new, to the dreams you'll chase, the goals you'll pursue. With gratitude and love you say goodbye to high school days as you reach for the skies. And now for some entertainment news. This week, how about some fun did you know facts about movies? Well, the cat in The Godfather was a surprise. Don Corleone wasn't supposed to be stroking a cat during his tete-a-tete with Bonasara. Rather, director Francis Ford Coppola spotted the animal on the set and decided to include it in the scene. The cat in Marlon Brando's hands was not planned for a Coppola set, according to Time. I saw the cat running around the studio and took it, put it in his hands without a word. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is movies. How about Buzz Lightyear was almost a different name? Early designs for Toy Story's Buzz Lightyear revealed the action figure was originally going to be called Lunar Larry, and its design was slightly different too. Buzz's name was changed in a tribute to real-life astronaut Buzz Aldrin. Aldrin and Neil Armstrong became the first two humans to walk on the moon on the 20th of July, 1969. Armstrong went first. Aldrin joined him about 20 minutes later. And how about the trash and all the president's men came straight from the source? Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman famously portrayed Washington Post reporters Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein in All the President's Men, drama on how the newspaper broke the Washington scandal. Well, tens of thousands of dollars were spent in order to recreate the Washington Post room. That mission, according to the newspaper itself, including shipping Jeannie Washington Post trash to Hollywood in order to make sure the newsroom clutter looked authentic. Wow, now that's yeah. um, Jaws wasn't always going to need a bigger boat. It's one of the most iconic lines in the history of cinema, and it wasn't always meant to be. You're going to need a bigger boat, is what Chief Brody says after a menacing white shark is spotted. Well, according to the screenwriter, you're going to need a bigger boat had become a running joke on the film set, meant to signal small mishaps. It became a catchphrase for any time anything went wrong. If lunch was late or if the swells were rocking the camera, someone would say, "You're going to need a bigger boat." Well, Rob Strider ad libbed the line at various times in the movie, and this was one of the ones that happened to make the final cut. Wonderful. Loving the movies. And as we come to a close of today's episode, let's remember that the stories we've shared can serve as a reminder of the goodness that surrounds us every day. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So find your beauty, shine, and share it. Remember to spread love, joy, and positivity whenever and wherever you go. See you next week for some more stories, entertainment news, and fun facts. Until then, peace and love always. And thank you for tuning in to the Sunny Days podcast at jollyville.com. That's JALEAVILLE.com. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.